All right, Chris, what's going on?
All right, what's up, Greg?
Not a whole hell of a lot, man. We're here in Gridley, California at the arcade that Chris put together, and it's called Back in Time Arcade, correct?
Back in Time Arcade Part 2.
Part 2.
My partner has an arcade in Marysville, so that's Back in Time OG.
Oh, okay, cool. Heck yeah, that's super sweet. I got the pleasure of meeting you probably over a decade ago, probably even longer than that. I did some concrete for you. But it wasn't until, I think, probably 3 or 4 years ago. It was probably around the time I got the container from you.
You know, probably so. Yeah,
probably
you're right.
Around that time, you know, because I would come in to give you a payment, which we're both really horrible about, and I think I owe you for last month. But anyways, I'd stop in your shop all the time and just talk to you, and then I would see all this cool stuff that you had. And then I was like, I didn't know you were into a lot of the same things that I was into, so I would come by more often. Even besides paying you, I would just come in to see what's going on, and I think that's how we became pretty good friends. And I think that sounds pretty accurate, yeah? Or
Absolutely. And I vaguely remember when we met when you were doing the concrete years ago. I think we hit on computers, and at the time I was really into the old school computers.
Yep.
But now old school.
Yep.
And we started bouncing ideas off each other and geeking out.
And then, of course, what your shirt says, Gangsta Rap made me do it. I would have never thought that you were a huge fan of gangster rap, and I am too. I love hip hop probably more than any other genre, even though I play, in a rock band or whatever. But it was every time I'd come into your shop, you just had the coolest, 90s, West Coast rap bumping, or even, the East Coast stuff too. Just all the way around. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so, now it feels like, before it was just you were somebody that I knew, and we conversated here and there when we seen each other and stuff. But now I feel like getting to know you over these last 4 years, it's more than that. I feel like I can call you if I need help with something, or vice versa. If you need help with something, you can always call me. And so I'm super thankful of our friendship. So it's pretty cool. That
means a lot to me too.
That all worked out. Yeah.
Kindred spirits, sort of. We have a lot of the similar interests at slightly different times, I think, because I'm about 10 years your senior, probably.
Yeah.
And so my forays into computers and technology, and I used to videotape stuff in high school all the time, just like you did. We're so much alike. We wore the same shorts.
I know. That is pretty funny. We tend to show up at the same location, and we're always wearing pretty similar stuff: camo shorts and black shirt.
Yep. That's the uniform.
So what got you into cameras and stuff? Where did that start for you?
So back in the, I guess, mid 80s, when home camcorders became a thing, my dad sprung for one, and it was a lot of money then. And we used it quite a bit, and it quickly became kind of my thing. I just was always picking it up, always had it. And then into high school, in the late 80s, early 90s, I always had it with me. And I was the guy that would go around school and record everything. At the same time, I was getting into DJing as well, because music's always resonated with me.
Yep.
I don't play any instruments, and I'm not one to be in front of the microphone usually, or in front of the camera. I'm behind the scenes and doing the technology.
Well, you're here now.
I am here now. Started from the bottom. Now I'm here.
Yep.
And so all that technology kind of melded in together. So it was audio, video, computers. I got my first high school job was at Radio Shack.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up working at 3 different Radio Shacks throughout high school and then college. So it all that stuff kind of worked hand in hand. And then it kind of all went away for a period of time when business started to grow and my family started to grow. And now it's all rushing back. And all these arcade games have these computers that I worked on 20 years ago. It's the same thing.
It's kind of sad Radio Shack is gone, huh?
So I did just see something recently. I read that there's might be some coming back. And
Really?
I don't know if they'll come back in the capacity they were. But
I remember just going to the Radio Shack in Orville for always the most random little connector or adapter or whatever. And now it's it's hard to find any of that stuff in a store. You almost have to just get it online, which sucks because you know how it goes. You think something might work when you see it on Amazon, you get it, a couple days later and it doesn't work, and then you have to just keep searching.
Yep.
Where Radio Shack, you could take whatever you had, you could go in and try out all the different stuff. But so the arcades though, like, I remember walking into your shop and you had just a couple arcades. I don't remember what they were, but what was your first arcade? And I guess we'll get into that, but I want to know, like, what made you, like, get into this so heavy, and then also what was, like, your first arcade?
So I'll rewind a little bit before my first arcade, because my interest in gaming, our generation kind of grew up with arcades and gaming and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big gamer, which is kind of an interesting thing, even though we own an arcade now. I grew up with Atari 2600, Nintendo, a little bit of Super Nintendo, and then I kind of gravitated out of games. I was getting into college. I majored in electronics. I was doing technology stuff, but it wasn't gaming related. So I want to say in probably the early 2000s sometime, I was planning on building my own arcade game. So I was going to take a computer and emulate all the machines on it, build a cabinet, put the computer inside, and then I'd have thousands of games at my fingertips. And the challenge of building it was more of an intrigue than actually playing the games. So I bought all the stuff, and then I started growing a family, and business started growing, and the box just kind of got pushed off to the side.
Yeah.
And about 3 years ago, I saw this dude online selling on Marketplace a bunch of arcade games just randomly every once in a while. And I was like, wow, that's neat. And so I messaged the guy, which I don't normally do because I wasn't intending on buying anything. And I was like, hey, it's super cool that you have all these games for sale. I actually have parts to build a game and just never did it. He's like, oh man, you should totally build it. Well, a month or two later, he posted online a game that I ended up buying. So that was my first game, was from Damien, my partner in the arcade here.
Oh, okay.
And so it's nothing fancy. It's just a what we call a multicade. So it has like 60 classic games built into one cabinet. And so that was my first one.
Well, I wasn't sure how you and Damien met. I've met Damien. He's a super cool dude. And yeah, he's got the other location there in Marysville.
Right.
And he's just super awesome guy. He just seems like he's really cool. And so, like, you guys, when I like come by your shop and you guys are, working on an arcade together, like, I don't ever mean to be like intrusive, but sometimes I just want to sit there and watch you guys work on it because I'm like an electronics nerd too myself. What you guys are doing is way beyond anything that I know about, but still I know enough to be really interested in what you guys are doing. So when I look at these machines now and they look really good. They look really clean. Like, you guys put a lot of work into them, and it's a art and it's truly cool. I really dig it.
I appreciate that. It's super fun. The challenge of getting a broken old 25, 30-year-old game running again is what keeps me going. It's intriguing and challenging.
So how do you go about like finding your games?
That's a common question. A lot of people ask that. So obviously Marketplace and Craigslist are like two of the main places where you can find games. Although now that it's kind of a popular thing, it's harder to find deals that way. So word of mouth, the circle, the scene of arcade guys is relatively small. And so we'll toss each other deals if somebody's, storage space is a huge problem. So It's not like we're collecting baseball cards here. I tell Damien all the time, I'm like, how come we don't collect baseball cards? We could have a whole bunch of them in this much space. Meanwhile, we've got containers filled with games. My shop's filled with games. The arcade's filled with games. So we'll push deals off to other people sometimes if we know somebody's looking for something in particular. Sometimes they're in a barn, sometimes they're in somebody's garage, sometimes they're in somebody's game room and they get tired of it because it's the same game they're playing over and over. So
what's like the craziest find? I'll see TV shows and stuff where like guys will go into barns and find this old car that's in perfect condition. Do you have anything like that? Like you just came across that you like it blew your mind? Like, I can't believe I'm about to score this.
There's been a couple that come to mind. One was a deal that I made, actually, so my shop was getting filled. I think we had the arcade location here, so we even offloaded some games and my shop was still getting full. So I bought two 40-foot containers. One of my side businesses is I buy and sell and rent containers. but I bought two 40-foot containers, but part of the deal was I had to take what was inside of them.
Oh.
And so I ended up with 33 jukeboxes in a variety of needing repair. And there was like 6 arcade games and nothing super cool. It were just some random games. So that was an interesting one, going through all that stuff. And still, I've got 33 jukeboxes at my shop that I need to go through when I get the time.
That's another thing that like you remind me of myself about big time is like, all the time you're texting me, hey, look at this deal that I got. I traded this for that, or, you know, I sold this and bought that, and then this, I traded this to get that. And it's like, I do a lot of that myself. And I mean, you saw me like with my trailers and stuff like that. It's like, I'm constantly trying to wheel and deal and just get more and more and bigger and better and better. And so I totally respect that of you. You're really good at doing that too. So
it's fun finding deals, and it's fun saving money and finding things you want if you're patient, and if somebody's tired of something and you can make use of it, why not?
I was actually really surprised when you told Derek like what your price was that you had invested into this. I thought the number was going to be way higher. So I was like, at that moment, I was like, oh, that's like super awesome. You were able to acquire this for what you did. And it just shows, man, you're willing and dealing out there, man.
That's part of it.
I feel like you're good at it, because I feel like someone that wasn't good at it and wanted to just go buy an arcade, you know, here and there, they probably would have spent a lot more than that.
Absolutely. I didn't have a desire to build an arcade necessarily. And like anybody with a bankroll can go spend $100,000 and go fill a room with games.
Yeah.
But doing it the way we're doing it, it's fun, challenging, intriguing. And
I just like when I walk in here, all the arcade games, they feel like retro. You get the feeling like these things have been played. There's history behind them. It doesn't feel like, you know, walking into an arcade at the mall where everything feels fresh and brand new. Like there's something, you know, you got the nostalgia here. A lot of the games in here I used to play when I was a kid. And so, you know, walking up to Mortal Kombat and like just touching the joystick and the buttons, it just takes me back to when I was a kid. And that's like my favorite part of this whole entire arcade. It's, you know, you guys keep it real and keep the machines original, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think you were explaining to me a while back, like there's all kinds of like emulators
mm-hmm.
and stuff you could do and like build your own cabinets, mm-hmm. but it doesn't have that original organic feeling,
yes.
you know, from when I was a kid going into Round Table or whatever and popping the quarters in.
It kind of hits all your senses. And it's interesting you say that about the tactile part of it for you. For me, it was the sounds. When I bought that first arcade cabinet from Damien, and I brought it home and plugged it in, and I heard the sounds. Like I got chills. I got goosebumps on my arms, because that's what brought me back to, you know, when I was a little kid. For a while, I lived with my mom, and we were within blocks of Chuck E. Cheese, and I had kind of forgotten about that memory because I was so small. Mm-hmm. But the arcade was just part of our life. I mean, it was everywhere, at the bowling alley, at the pizza place, everywhere. And, so the nostalgia of it is a big reason.
You talking about being young right there, I'm just curious, like where did you grow up? Where were you born? Because you're not from this area, are you?
No, I'm a transplant here. So I've been here 22 years now, so I'm basically from here now.
You're from here now, yeah. Yep.
But no, I was born in Fort Bragg, California, Mendocino County kid. I graduated from Willits High School back in 1993, long time ago. That'll date me right there.
Yeah.
But I moved over here, like I said, about 22 years ago, and been here ever since.
Wow, that picture you sent me last night of you in high school in front of the board, I'll put it up on the screen so people can see it.
Nice.
The first thing I noticed was your mixing board right there. That's in what year was that?
So
that picture.
I bought that would have been 1993.
Okay, so
92 or 93.
The mixing board in that picture from 93 is what runs the music in this arcade today.
You know,
and that is so cool.
I was so stoked that thing still works, and yeah, it
reminds me of my partner and buddy Gary. Like he's got this whole DJ setup, but he's got like all these old amplifiers and receivers from way back in the day, and I mean it sounds better than some of the new stuff you can buy now, you know. So technology has come a long way, but then also I feel like when companies try and cut corners and cut costs on certain things, it makes a product that could be amazing not that great at all, you know, and I tend to see that a lot. So I love the sound of that machine. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it, but it's so cool.
So that's a pinball machine. I have to rewind, actually. So the first video game cabinet I bought from my partner Damien. However, the first real game that I bought was that pinbot machine. I bought that sometime in the, I don't know, probably 15 years ago or so.
Oh, wow. So it was this long ago that you started buying machines.
So yeah, I bought that specifically because a pinbot was in the bowling alley where my dad and mom and I used to go bowl. And we used to play that game all the time and loved it. And I saw one for sale on Craigslist years ago, and I bought it back when I didn't have enough money to be buying a pinball machine.
So how long ago did you start buying a bunch of them? Because I remember just going into your shop one day, and then all of a sudden there's like arcades.
So I bought that multicade, and shortly thereafter, I bought my first dedicated machine, which is actually this one sitting right behind me right here.
Okay.
Super Monaco GP. Super unique cabinet, super neat artwork. The gameplay is difficult, but I bought that and it just kind of snowballed. Like, it was finding these things is kind of like finding a piece of the past, and I want to kind of keep that, keep it alive, basically.
So it's almost like a lost treasure. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it just snowballed, and I have more arcade cabinets now than I care to count.
Well, it's cool because I feel like I feel blessed because I get to come by your shop and see the games before they're even, you know, restored or anything like that. Or you'll get a game going. Hey, come check this game out. I get to stop by and play it before anyone else gets to see it. So I feel special in that sense. So.
Absolutely. You get the VIP pass.
And man, your shop, it's such an interesting place. Again, it reminds me of myself. There's so many different things, you know. You got the fire engine in there, which that's a cool.
Got a fire engine.
That's a cool thing. And then you got arcades. You have all this woodworking stuff. You got electronics. It's just a huge variety of things that you're passionate about and like to do. And so it reminds me of my shop. You walk in, there's a laser, there's computers, there's, you know, all this different stuff that I enjoy doing. And the last thing you had gotten was that CNC machine.
Yes, the CNC machine that continues
and every
to sit.
time I talk to you, you're like, the CNC machine, because you still need to set it up, but you don't have room to set it up.
I want to set that thing up so bad, but it's lower on the priority list right now. So.
I've been waiting too, because I feel like we could make some really cool stuff between CNC and laser etching. We could make some cool projects together.
Absolutely. I might be 70 and you might be 60 when the time comes around, but you never know.
So what's like your ultimate goal with the arcade business? Is it something that you want to expand? Is it something you're just doing for fun? Where are you at on that?
Right now we're a little over a couple months in from being open, and it's going great. Expansion would be a little difficult, I think, just because you need the people that are passionate to run it. That's a big part of the arcade. Right now, the short-term goal, which actually has been met, this is a place that people can come, and there's no controversial stuff. There's no politics, really. There's nothing other than gaming and smiles and fun and nostalgia and laughing. And it doesn't matter if you're 2 or 3 years old and need a step stool to get up to play a game, or if you're 75 and playing air hockey. I mean, it's across the board. Everybody has a fun time here. And that's what it's all about. It's fun to just share that. I see
that too. Like last week last week there was a really good turnout here, and I remember just kind of walking around and watching everybody's faces. They're smiling, and then listening to people. Oh, I remember playing this game when I was younger. And like you said, there's anywhere from 3-year-olds to 70-year-olds in here playing games. And I know me and Billy, we're going head on the basketball court, and that's fun. And my girlfriend too, she's good at that game. Yep. Whenever we run into one, we play. So I'm gonna have to get her over here and challenge her on your basketball machine. But I think Billy was trying to break the record over here on what game was that?
On Whack-A-Fire.
Whack-A-Fire. Billy, did you ever find the world record on that?
I couldn't find anything on
Whack the Molar, which is kind of the same.
Yeah, it's the same thing, but nothing whack a fire with a world championship or anything like that.
I do have to say that I think Billy has an unfair advantage being a drummer and playing Whack-A-Fire.
He does. I have an awesome video of Billy playing that, and he was slaying it and sweating. So, what's the game that like you're on the hunt for? Because I know people like me and you. When there's something that we enjoy, there's always a product or something like that we're searching for.
There's a couple of pinball machines that I would really enjoy getting. They're getting harder and harder to find. As far as the video games go, I don't know that I'm looking for a specific one until I see it. Like it's like the Whack-A-Fire game, for instance. I didn't even know that game existed. And when it came up for sale, I saw it and I was like, okay, I've got like 20 years of firefighting behind me. I've got an arcade. Like we're going to have to get this game. So I don't have any particular holy grail games that I have to have. Like I said, I'm not a huge gamer, but if I see something that looks fun and is an interesting design and is a deal, it's got to be a deal too. Then I'll jump on it if I can.
All right. Well, I know a game that actually I take that back. The game I wanted you to get was the 4-player Ninja Turtles game, and then you showed me the picture that Damien has it. Correct?
Yep, it's down in Marysville at the arcade.
So I'm gonna have to get over to that location and go play that because I remember going to Cal Skate when we were younger in Chico, and just the fact that 4 people could play on this game together simultaneously, it was just. Like that game was so much fun, and I feel like I could go back now and beat it, because when I was a kid, it was really hard.
Of course you can beat it if they're set on free play. Now you don't have to put quarters in it.
Hey, that's what I do love about here. You come in, you pay $10, and you get to play unlimited throughout the night. And so me and Billy's son, we were playing the Lucky Wild over there.
Nice.
And I was driving and shooting, and Billy's son was shooting, and we would not have made it very far if we were playing with quarters, but since we were able to keep hitting the continue button for free, that was cool.
That's awesome.
Which is cool because when I was younger, like when you'd go to Round Table and play an arcade, I mean, I remember like just dying and then running to my mom as fast as I can. Mom, I need more quarters. Because I only had like 20, 30 seconds to hit continue. And man, I would probably go through $10 or $15 trying to, beat a game. And back then, that was quite a bit of money, So even now, it would still be a lot. But,
totally.
Yeah.
The challenge of that is sort of lost when you have games set on free play, but it's more about casually playing and just having some fun.
I like the atmosphere here. I like that, you don't, because some people just don't, have the funds to just come in here and dump quarter after quarter after quarter on a game. But it's really cool that I've heard so many people say, oh, it's only $10 to play, for 4 or 5 hours. And I'm like, yeah. And like, that's, it's really exciting, and I think it's very well priced and just a fun place to be and hang out. So like I haven't seen an arcade in a long time, you like I said, you walk into the mall and it's just kind of, you got the claw game and then maybe one console game and that's about it.
Those are mostly redemption games, they're called, where they have prizes or tickets or something and they're just, it's kind of like a kid's casino sort of, where it's just a money grab and it's not the same feel.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that we now have the arcade here. When Damien set his up in Marysville, I helped him out and helped him set it up. And I never really thought until maybe 6 months after he was open, I was like, well, maybe it would be cool to have an arcade because I just didn't think.
Remember when you first mentioned it to me, I'm like, that would be awesome just for the nostalgia alone. I didn't know how well it would do, honestly, because a lot of younger kids, especially even my age, I still consider myself young, but I'm 36, but people my age and younger were addicted to playing games on our phone and stuff like that. But especially the 20 and under, they've never played these games, as a child. So I didn't know how well it would do, but it's cool watching these little kids come in and playing some of these old games. And yeah, it's just really awesome.
It's a different experience it's actually a social experience where it's not online social. It's not solitary but in front of your console at home. You're dealing with people. You're waiting in line. Sometimes you're playing other actual people in the same place at the same time.
You know, it's no different than like if I walk into an antique store and I see all this cool stuff from like the early 1900s. Like, yeah, I wasn't there to experience it when it first came out, but I'm just looking back and I see the history and I see like how old it is, and I can just tell that it meant something to somebody at some point in time. So I think the younger kids that are coming in here today look at these old machines and they get that same kind of feeling like this was probably awesome, like when my dad was a kid, you know, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. So
absolutely, and it worked out. The place that we have here, the owners of the building are super supportive of the project. The next door neighbor here, Our Town Pizza, is super stoked about it because pizza and video games go hand in hand. They have for a long time. They
always have. I remember being young and playing, Nintendo 64, 007 with my friends, and Mom would bring home pizza and Mountain Dew, and we're sitting there just getting the controllers all greasy. And
Yep.
Yes, they do go hand in hand. So, back then you were pretty. I want to get back to like the audio stuff and like the electronics, because you talk to me about things all the time that I've heard of, but I've never got to play with, because I'm more of like in a digital world now, where you were, everything was analog. And so do you have any new equipment that's digital at all, or is like everything you have is just still analog?
Everything I have is analog. I still have my cassette tape racks from when I DJ'd with cassettes. I've got like 300 cassettes in racks by alphabetical order, so I knew where they were when I needed to queue them up.
It sounds like Eminem.
Exactly. I saw that video with him, and I saw his backdrop behind him, and I'm like, I have that same backdrop in my office.
Well, it's funny, when I watched that video, I thought of your office, because when I sit in the chair in your office, it's right there behind you, and yeah, you're like super organized with your cassettes, and I love that. Like I only had a couple cassettes growing up until it went to CDs. And, but about 7-8 years ago, I looked at my big old tub of CDs, and I looked at all this space, and I just grabbed the whole tub and I threw it in the dumpster. Well. And sometimes I'm like, I wish I wouldn't have done that. And at other times, I mean, I don't know. The world we live in now, it's like I have all the music I want right in my phone.
And that's cool in itself, but you miss things like reading the liner notes or seeing the artwork that's not on a screen.
Exactly. I totally was the kid that looked at, who the guitar player was on this album and who produced it and what, the lyrics, who wrote them. A lot of people don't even know that Flea, the bass player for Red Hot Chili Peppers, he and Dave Navarro did the guitar and bass line for Alanis Morissette's "You Ought to Know."
Yep.
And you wouldn't know that unless you read the booklet. And when I was a kid and I had that album, I read every single thing that was on that piece of paper while listening to the album. So I've always known that. And when I tell other people, they don't know that. So
I totally did the same thing. I remember finding, there were kind of Easter eggs in some of the albums or cassettes or CD liners or whatever. I never did get into vinyl. But a Dougie Fresh cassette tape that I have probably in my rack today still has the whole lyric sheet inside, so you could listen and read along and actually see the written word.
I was going to ask you if the lyrics were in the cassette tape, because they didn't have much room in there.
They didn't.
It wasn't like a CD booklet.
Right. It was a separate piece of paper that was folded up in with the cassette liner in that one. And like one of the Public Enemy albums that I have on cassette came with an ordering form. You could mail in an order. It was a baseball style uniform shirt with Public Enemy logo on it. And I wanted it so bad, but I couldn't save up enough money to send off and get it. But there was just cool stuff like that you don't see in an MP3.
I miss all that. As much as I love Spotify and YouTube for listening to music, because you have everything at your fingertips for a very generous amount of money.
Yes.
It's not much at all. Like,
right.
I feel like I miss some of that. Like, remember the old CD booklets that people would carry in their car, and it was like the most
Yep.
dangerous thing in the world, flipping through that thing trying to find the CD that you wanted to listen to.
Yep.
But yeah, so like, looking at your shirt and me knowing you, I know that you love gangster rap. Other people, a lot of people don't know that about you.
Right. Looking at me in my day to day, you would never guess it.
No, never. That's why when I first met you and I walked into your shop and you were bumping some, I remember it was, I want to say it was it was either Bone Thugs or Tupac. I remember it was 90s West Coast.
Okay.
And I walked into the shop and I was like, okay, cool. I didn't know if you just had it on a playlist and that was just an accidental. And then the next song came on. I'm like, okay. And then the next song, I'm like, okay. And then we started talking about, music and stuff. And that's when I found out that you love hip hop and I love hip hop. What made you pick hip hop out of all the genres to be your favorite? It had to have started when you were a kid.
It was. I would say junior high. I want to say probably in the 6th grade-ish. One of the 8th graders was DJing at our junior high at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. And I immediately gravitated over towards his setup and was checking out the cables and how he had it hooked up to the amp and the speakers and everything. And it was just something that drew me to it. And he was playing hip hop, so that was part of it. Another part of it was, I think, in 86 or 87, Run DMC and the Beastie Boys came on like a storm. Mm-hmm. And I remember for my birthday, I had other cassettes before. Like I would, your parents would kind of just give you some music to listen to that was their stuff. So I had like Kenny Rogers and Michael Jackson was huge. So I, of course, had the Thriller cassette, still do. The Police was big when I was young, but that wasn't really my musical choices at the time. It was just some stuff that I had. And I used to play them on this little cassette recorder. It had a speaker with a pop-up cassette lid and the buttons underneath it. It was like this big. Oh, wow. And it had a little pop-out handle and you can carry it around.
I feel like I remember those.
It was like pre-boombox. But then from whatever birthday that was, my 11th birthday or something, I got the Beastie Boys and Run DMC. And immediately, it was kind of like the arcade thing. Like, it just resonated so hard with me that I just started to explore all of the rap and hip-hop that I could. Pretty soon, Yo MTV Raps came on the scene. Later on in Living Color was exposing me to a lot of music. Because I grew up
and you're still a kid at this time, right?
Yeah, yep. So in Living Color was high school.
What did your parents think of the music you listened to?
So it just flashed a memory in my mind. So for Christmas one year, you always write your Christmas list down of stuff you want. And I wrote down a cassette that I wanted. And my grandma bought it. And it had the parental advisory explicit sticker on it, which was kind of new at the time. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think it was a K Solo album.
Okay.
And I think I have the cassette now, but my parents ended up taking that away from me because I was playing it. And they're like, you're not going to listen to this at this age. So that was also the time of like 2 Live Crew came out. And oh man, when we were in 7th and 8th grade and we would dub that stuff and you'd listen to it when your parents weren't around.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was big things. So it was so different from my social group. It was so different from my family upbringing. It was just intriguing to me to learn something different about some different type of culture, different type of people.
It's always interesting learning about other cultures and like wanting to know what other cultures are like. I remember growing up, the only thing I got to listen to for probably the first 8 years of my life was country because my mom listened to so much country. And I was in the car with her more than anybody. Whenever I'd get in the truck with my dad, I feel like it was just, classic rock station or whatever, but it was just like country being pounded into my head, into my head. And then I started getting a little bit older, and it was right around the time where CDs came out and you could record a CD onto a cassette. And one of my friends, Neil Garner in Richville, he had just an awesome eclectic collection of music. He had anything from like Rob Zombie to Too Short, Bone Thugs to, Bush and Metallica. So he would make me like mixtapes.
Right.
And one of those mixtapes had a couple songs from the East 1999 album, Bone Thugs, and I didn't care about anything else that was on that tape except for those Bone Thugs songs. So the next like week, I seen Neil again. I said, "Hey, I want more of this stuff." So he made me a mixtape with Too Short, Tupac, Snoop Dogg, all these guys, and I was like, "This is the coolest stuff I've ever heard in my life."
Yep.
Now, my dad thought differently.
Sure. There's some
My
cassettes
dad
were
did
flung
not
out the
like
window.
those cassettes. You know, we'd be listening to Too Short, and you know, there's some pretty explicit lyrics on some of those albums.
Yes, yes.
And you know, we're 8 or 9 years old running around singing the lyrics to him, and my dad's like, "What the hell?" You know. And my mom never really cared about like what I listened to. My dad was more strict. I remember I talked my mom into taking me to the music store and to get the Tupac's Greatest Hits album, and it was 2 CDs. And I remember my poor mom, she didn't know, but it says Tupac on there, and then when I opened it up, there was 2 discs. So she goes, "Oh, is it 2-pack because there's 2 CDs?" I'll never forget that. We were in Chico, we were in her old Buick car, and like that was just one of the funniest things. But yeah, my dad was not. That's him calling right now.
That's funny. Tell Alan I said hi.
Yeah. I could have answered it and brought the audio through here, but I better not. This podcast will be 3 hours long.
Well, I was going to say we have
did
to cut it off about an hour. Yeah, we'll be here all day if we talk to your dad. So, you know, I talked about my first cassettes, and it was kind of came in waves because then when I got into CDs a little bit, like the first CD I bought on my own, like my very first one was Boogie Down Productions.
Okay.
And talk about some message having culturally significant music. And it just, I don't know why it resonated with me, but it did. And so I just kind of kept going down that path, and my music collection was huge, predominantly hip hop.
Yeah. So do you still to this day you're listening to hip hop more than anything else?
Almost 24/7.
Almost,
yeah,
yeah.
I do appreciate all music, and I always have.
Every now and then I think I've heard you maybe listen to some 90s rock or something, but I think every time I've ever come into your shop, it's mostly hip hop.
Mostly hip hop. I love all music though, and especially live music. It's just
what I love about it too is, me in my shop, I listen to all kinds of different stuff, hip hop, rock, metal, anything except country, really. But when I know a customer is going to be coming over to either pick up or drop something off, I'll change my music based on what I think they would like. What I like about you is you don't care. You're like, nope, this is what we're listening to.
if you're not going to come buy steaks because of the music I listen to, then I don't know.
Well, because I'll have some people come into my shop, and I listen to Eminem a lot. Like he's by far one of my most favorite artists, and his lyrics are very explicit. And I don't want like some 70-year-old lady walking into my shop and then like hearing the lyrics to Kim.
Right.
It's just like they would be like, what is this psychopath doing in here?
Yeah.
I remember like getting my first Eminem album. My dad wanted to break that. I think he might have broken that thing in half. It was either that or I had to get rid of it, one or the other, and then my mom bought me another one. I remember having to get 2 copies because my dad did not like that album.
I remember listening to Eminem for the very first time I ever heard it. I was fighting fire then, and we were on a fire engine on a strike team heading somewhere, and I got paired up with a crew from some other unit. And so we're riding along, and they're like, "Oh, have you heard Eminem?" And I'm like, "No." And they put it in, and my mind was blown.
It was
blown away.
It was insane when that first came out. It was nothing we'd ever heard. You hear, I guess with hip hop too, you would hear like vulgar lyrics and stuff, but culturally we didn't feel it the same as when Eminem came out. Probably because he's white. It just felt like there was more of a connection to these obscene lyrics, and
Right.
But I had been listening to Tupac and Biggie and all these people way before who say stuff like that as well. but it was different with Eminem. I don't know. I can't explain it. Like my dad always tries to explain to me what it was like during the Beatles era, right? And I feel like it's unexplainable to the same way. Like we're never gonna be able to explain to kids what it was like when the Marshall Mathers LP or the Slim Shady LP came out. It was
groundbreaking.
It was insane.
Similar to like the Beastie Boys when they came out.
Beastie Boys as well, yeah.
In that earlier wave. It was, you feel a little bit like an outsider, kind of, even though you shouldn't, because music is music. It doesn't matter who you are. My first concert I went to ever was a Sir Mix-a-Lot concert.
Oh, wow.
And we were like the 3 only country white kids in the whole place.
And what's crazy is he was just here not long ago in our town.
I saw it after the fact, and yeah, I missed it.
I would have went with you to that.
Next time.
Yeah, it's just pretty wild, like what music can do to people in different genres. Like you know me, I listen to a lot of hip hop, but I also listen to a lot of rock, and the different feelings I get from each one is just it's so strange. But if I want to get things done, you know, like when our band is on the way to a show, like Billy's the only one that's like with me on the hip hop, you know. But like I want to listen to some gangster rap with a beat. Like to me, Dr. Dre is the most beautiful produced music I've ever heard in my life, and I love that on Spotify he has his albums, the instrumentals, because I tend to listen to his instrumentals even more because the music that he's creating with real instruments in the studio is just, it can't be touched.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely. A composer like no other.
Yeah. I mean, the detail in all of his songs, all the little noises that you hear, all the overlays, and it's not generic in any way. And I've never heard a generic beat or song from Dr. Dre. And I was just talking about this the other day with someone. You know, you take an artist like Tupac and even Snoop Dogg. To me, as soon as Dr. Dre stopped producing their beats, or even the songs that they have that Dre didn't produce, I'm just not that big of a fan of.
Yeah.
But as soon as one comes on, I know right away. I don't even need to read the credits. I know, okay, Dre produced this, and he's just got something that no one else has.
Very few people can do what he does.
Who's your favorite hip hop artist all time?
Man, you know, people ask me about my kids.
You know what? The big thing on the internet. What's the top 5?
Okay.
What's the top 5? And it doesn't have to be in order.
That makes me more comfortable. My girls ask me all the time, "What's your favorite?" Whatever, and I'm horrible. I have committal issues, I guess, because I can't just name a favorite. Public Enemy's got to be in the top 5, for sure. Honestly, man, it's so hard.
I put you on the spot.
So I know. It's so hard. Okay, so Public Enemy for sure. You know, Ice-T. Ice-T was always from early on. That was one of my early ones too. So he's kind of ingrained in me. Ice Cube. Got to go with the Cube.
Yep.
Tech 9.
Ooh, okay.
Man, does it only have to be 5? You know, I didn't find this one until later on in life. I want to say like maybe 12 years ago. But E40.
Ooh,
like,
okay.
He's just, I don't know how I didn't know of him before then.
I don't listen to much E40, but one thing that I do really love about the guy is it's so different. So different than anybody else. The beats are different. The way he says words, the way he speaks, his cadence. It's like it's never gonna be replicated.
Right.
You know, there's like you take Eminem. There's a lot of people that can sound like him if they try to.
Right.
Give me a room full of 30 people, and they're not gonna even come close to how E40 sounds. You know.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, there's one person on your list that I have on my list, and that's Tech 9.
Okay.
He's just a genius, man. And I've also met Tech 9. Me and my buddy Matt, we did an interview with him on his tour bus. One of the coolest dudes I ever seen. We were doing an interview for a magazine company in Chico, and he was just super cool. But that guy performs, man. He's just such a performer and lyricist. So I would have to go in no order: Tech 9, Yellow Wolf, Eminem. Bone Thugs, and Dr. Dre. Not Dr. Dre's rap, but Dr. Dre's music.
Production. Yep.
Yep.
You bet. Yeah, that's a
So
good list too.
Those five, if I could go the rest of my life with not having anything but those five, I'd be completely fine.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Yellow Wolf too. I know you haven't dug into Yellow Wolf the way I have.
I really haven't, and I want to. I need
Because
to do that.
he's just such an interesting person.
Mm-hmm.
He's an interesting artist. He has all kinds of different songs, and he can chop really fast. He can rap really fast. He can sing really well. So you never know, like on his album, if there's going to be some rock songs, and if there's going to be a rap, or if he's going to sing slow. I want you to dive into Yellow Wolf more. So,
I'll make that a
so we
project
have
for
even
sure.
more to talk about.
Totally.
So, what time are we at right now? 48 minutes? That feel good.
Man, seems like 3 hours for some reason. I don't know why, but I can talk about this stuff all day.
It's probably because the chairs, and we're in one spot.
Right.
I bet if we had like some lazy boys, we could be here a lot longer.
Lazy Boy
but-
podcast. Get sponsored by them and get a couple Lazy Boys.
Yep. So, another thing too is what I wanted to know about, like, you like rap.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's going to the grave with you? You're gonna be listening to that till the day you die.
I do. The strong bass line and stuff always resonates with me. I'm always going to have speakers and wherever I'm at.
Because I'm
And-
just thinking, I could just picture Chris, 80 years old, cruising.
Yep.
And
Might have some speakers on my walker.
Yeah, which that's going to be cool because, we see a lot of older folks now, listening to classic music, Frank Sinatra and Johnny Cash and, Hank Williams and all this stuff. But it's going to be real interesting to see, the 60, 70, and 80-year-olds listening to Eminem and rap and KRS-One.
And, getting into metal, you'll be seeing old guys like me listening to Static X
Yep.
and Mudvayne. And
Yep.
I mean, all sorts of stuff.
Wow. So what's your most memorable concert?
I haven't been to a lot of concerts. Oddly, I've been to mostly country concerts, which for a period of time I did listen to country quite a bit, like late 80s, early 90s kind of big stuff, Reba and George Strait and Alabama. And it was a big country movement. Honestly, I think my favorite concert that I went to was the last concert that I went to with my wife. We went and saw the Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Ooh, that was probably badass.
And just the laser lights, the light show, the music, it was incredible.
Yeah, they are definitely on my my bucket list.
Yeah, if they come back around, you'll have to see them for sure. We did see them in Sacramento, and it was worth it.
Well, one of these years you ought to go to Aftershock with me and Shauna. We go every year,
that'd be rad.
I mean, it's like I don't even know how many bands, anywhere from 60 to 90 in a 4-day period.
Dang.
This year we're gonna only be going to 2 of the days,
Mm-hmm.
but 4 days it's tough making it there all 4 days, But
doubt.
it's cool though that they're starting to do concerts and festivals in this fashion, because now you get to see so many bands that you've always wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
It does suck. Like I remember we watched Tool a couple years ago, but their live show at a festival like that is not. It's not the same as if it's their show alone. There's a lot more production because they only have 30, 40 minutes to get the stage ready while the other stage is playing.
Right.
Where if they're having their own show in like a stadium or something like that, they have days to prepare for it.
Right.
So, that'd be cool to get. And I want to get you to one of our shows. You haven't seen us yet.
I feel I'm such a horrible friend. Really, yeah. We talk about that a lot, and we are going to make that a point to make that happen.
I think that'd be really cool to see you there. And like I said, I just love hanging out here. I love what you're doing with the arcade. I love that you're bringing something, some excitement and a place for kids to hang out in the town. And man, I'm super happy for you, and I'm super excited to see where this whole arcade thing takes you.
Me too. I'm excited by the project. It's so fun, and that's why we're doing it. We'll keep doing it as long as it's fun.
All right. Well, I hope to have you back on here again, and we'll nerd out some more on electronics and stuff like that. So
I'm down.
Thank you, Chris. We'll see you, buddy.
All right.